Natalie Parker was my name, and being the free babysitter on family vacations was apparently my game. For years, my sister Vanessa had expertly manipulated me into watching her 3 kids while she enjoyed our annual beach getaway. This year, I finally reached my breaking point and booked my own room. When I told her, she exploded, calling me a traitor to the family. What she never expected was that her husband would discover the whole truth. Before I dive into this family drama, let me know where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe to join our community of boundary-setting warriors. My relationship with my older sister Vanessa had always been a complicated mix of love, rivalry, and unspoken expectations. Growing up, she was the confident, outgoing one who knew exactly what she wanted, while I was more reserved and accommodating. This dynamic followed us into adulthood, with Vanessa seeming to always get her way, especially within our family. When Vanessa married Richard Mitchell 10 years ago, I was genuinely happy for her. Richard was kind, level-headed, and seemed to balance my sister's more demanding personality. Within 5 years, they had 3 beautiful children. Emma, now 8, an intelligent, bookish girl with her father's calm demeanor. Tyler, 6, energetic and always in motion. And little Lily, 3, who combined her mother's determination with an irresistible sweetness. Our extended family had a tradition of renting a large beach house in Destin, Florida for a week each summer. My parents, Karen and Thomas Parker, started this tradition when we were children, and as adults, we continued it. The gathering usually included my parents, Vanessa's family of 5, me, and occasionally our Aunt Catherine, Uncle Gerald, and Cousin Stephanie. The problem began 4 years ago, after Lily was born. The beach house had 4 bedrooms. 1 for my parents, 1 for Aunt Catherine and Uncle Gerald, 1 for Vanessa and Richard, and 1 that I was expected to share with the 3 children. The arrangement seemed temporary at first, but it quickly became the assumed setup each year. Natalie, you don't mind watching the kids while we go out for dinner, right? Vanessa would ask, though it wasn't really a question. They loved their Aunt Natalie time. What started as occasional babysitting evolved into me becoming the default childcare provider throughout the vacation. While everyone else enjoyed sunset beach walks, went shopping, or relaxed with cocktails on the deck, I was building sandcastles, mediating sibling fights, and handling bedtime routines. My career as a marketing executive at a demanding tech company meant that these vacations were precious opportunities for me to actually rest and recharge. Instead, I often returned home more exhausted than when I left. "You're so good with them," my mother would say whenever I tried to raise concerns. "Vanessa and Richard need a break too, you know. It's not easy raising 3 children." My father would simply shrug and say, "That's what family does, Nat. We help each other out." Over the years, I made several attempts to discuss the issue with Vanessa. Each time, she either dismissed my concerns or made me feel selfish for wanting time to myself. "You don't understand what it's like to be a mother," she'd say, effectively ending the conversation. "When you have kids of your own someday, you'll get it." At 32, I was happy with my single, career-focused life. I valued my independence and had built a fulfilling existence with close friends, challenging work, and various interests that I pursued passionately. I wasn't against having a family someday, but I resented the implication that my time and needs were less important because I hadn't chosen the same path as my sister. Last year's vacation had been particularly exhausting. Lily had gone through a phase of waking up multiple times each night, and since she was sharing a room with me, I was the one who got up with her. During the day, Tyler had developed a habit of disappearing on the beach, causing several panic searches. Meanwhile, Vanessa and Richard seemed to be having the time of their lives, going on romantic dinners and afternoon excursions while I remained on duty. I returned to my apartment in Chicago feeling used and underappreciated. My friend Olivia noticed my frustration when we met for coffee the week after my return. "You know this isn't normal, right?" she said after I described the situation. "They're taking advantage of you, and your parents are enabling it." "It's just how our family works," I replied, though her words resonated with something I'd felt but couldn't articulate. "Well, it's not working for you," Olivia pointed out. "And you're allowed to change things that aren't working." Her words stayed with me throughout the year, planting a seed that would eventually grow into action. 3 months before our scheduled vacation this year, my phone buzzed with notifications from our family group chat. My mother had initiated the conversation about finalizing arrangements for the beach house. "Looking forward to our annual tradition," she wrote. "Karen and I have booked the same place as last year. Everyone good with the same sleeping arrangements." Before I could respond, Vanessa chimed in. "Perfect. Natalie, the kids are so excited for their sleepover week with you. Emma's already planning the books. She wants you to read to them." I stared at my phone, feeling that familiar knot form in my stomach. Once again, my agreement was being assumed rather than asked for. I took a deep breath and typed a tentative response. "Actually, I was thinking we might want to reconsider the room arrangements this year." 3 dots appeared as Vanessa typed her reply. "What do you mean? The kids would be so disappointed not to stay with you. Besides, where else would they sleep?" "I was thinking maybe we could rotate who stays with the kids," I suggested. "Or perhaps we could look into a house with an extra bedroom this year." "That would cost more," my mother quickly interjected. "And we've already put down the deposit." Vanessa sent a crying emoji. "Natalie, please don't do this. You know how much the kids look forward to their time with you. Plus, Richard and I really need this vacation time together." The conversation continued in this vein, with subtle guilt trips and dismissal of my concerns. No one was actually hearing what I was trying to say. My frustration grew with each message until I finally put my phone down without responding further. That evening, my mother called. "Natalie, what's going on?" "Vanessa is upset about the room situation." I sighed, gathering my courage. "Mom, I love Emma, Tyler, and Lily, but I need a vacation too. Every year, I end up being the default babysitter while everyone else gets to relax and enjoy themselves." "That's not true," my mother protested. "You spend time with the kids because you love them." "Yes, I do love them, but that doesn't mean I want to be responsible for them 24/7 during what's supposed to be my vacation too." "Well, what do you expect Vanessa and Richard to do? They can't just leave 3 young children alone." "No, they can't," I agreed. "But they're the parents, not me. I didn't choose to have children, they did." There was a moment of shocked silence before my mother responded. "I never thought you could be so selfish, Natalie. Your sister needs your help. That's what family does." The conversation ended with neither of us satisfied. I felt worse than before, questioning whether I was indeed being unreasonable. The next day, I met Olivia for lunch and recounted the exchange. "That's classic guilt tripping," Olivia said firmly. "You're not asking for anything outrageous. You're just asking to enjoy your vacation like everyone else." But maybe she's right. Maybe I am being selfish. "Setting boundaries isn't selfish," Olivia countered. "What's selfish is expecting someone to provide free childcare and making them feel bad when they say no." After lunch, I spent the afternoon researching nearby rentals. There were several small cottages and hotel rooms within walking distance of our beach house. The prices were reasonable, especially considering I'd be paying for my own space rather than contributing to the larger house that I barely got to enjoy. For days, I debated with myself. Was I really willing to disrupt our family tradition and potentially cause a rift with my sister? But each time I imagined another vacation spent primarily as an unpaid nanny, my resolve strengthened. 2 weeks after the initial conversation, I made my decision. I booked a studio cottage 2 blocks from our usual beach house and crafted a message to the family group chat. I wanted to let everyone know that I decided to book my own accommodation for this year's vacation. I'll still participate in family activities, but I need my own space this time. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in Destin. The response was immediate. My phone rang within minutes, Vanessa's name flashing on the screen. I took a deep breath before answering. "What is this about your own accommodation?" she demanded without preamble. "You're abandoning us?" "I'm not abandoning anyone, Vanessa. I'll be 2 blocks away, and we'll still spend plenty of time with everyone. I just need my own space this year." "But what about the kids? They're expecting to stay with you. What am I supposed to tell them?" "You can tell them that Aunt Natalie loves them very much but needs her own room this year. We'll still have plenty of fun together during the day." And who's going to help me watch them while Richard and I go out? Or when I want to relax on the beach? And there it was, the real issue, finally laid bare. It wasn't about the kids being disappointed. It was about the free childcare. They're your children, Vanessa. It's not my responsibility to watch them so you can have a child-free vacation. The line went quiet for a moment before my sister's voice returned, cold and hard. I never thought you'd be such a traitor to this family. After everything we've done for you. Traitor? Because I want to enjoy my vacation too? You're just being selfish. You've always been selfish. I don't even know why you bother coming on these family vacations if you don't want to be part of the family. Her words stung, but I held firm. I do want to be part of the family, Vanessa. I just don't want to be the family babysitter. The call ended with Vanessa hanging up on me, something she hadn't done since our teenage years. Within the hour, my parents called, then texted when I didn't answer. The messages echoed Vanessa's sentiments, though slightly more diplomatically. We're disappointed in your decision, Natalie. Family means supporting each other. Please reconsider. Even my usually non-confrontational father sent a message. Your sister is very upset. I wish you would try to work this out with her. These vacations are about family togetherness. The only family member who didn't contact me was Richard. I wondered what Vanessa had told him about the situation. As the days passed, the tension didn't dissipate. Conversations with my parents became strained, with the vacation situation hovering unspoken in the background. Vanessa wasn't speaking to me at all, ignoring my occasional texts and calls. 2 weeks before the vacation, my resolve was wavering under the constant pressure and disapproval. I called Olivia in a moment of weakness. Maybe I should just cancel my rental and go with the original plan, I said. It's only 1 week, and it might not be worth all this drama. Do you really want to spend another vacation being taken advantage of? Olivia asked. If you give in now, nothing will ever change. You'll be setting yourself up for a lifetime of being the family doormat. Her blunt assessment was exactly what I needed to hear. I recommitted to my decision, despite the growing anxiety about the upcoming vacation. The day of departure arrived with a sense of dread mixed with determination. I had arranged to drive down to Destin separately rather than carpooling with my parents, as we usually did. The 5-hour journey from Atlanta gave me time to mentally prepare for the week ahead. When I arrived at the beach house to say hello before settling into my rental, the reception was chilly at best. My mother greeted me with a stiff hug, while my father gave a distracted wave from where he was unloading the car. Vanessa barely acknowledged my presence, busying herself with organizing the children's beach toys. Richard was the only one who seemed genuinely pleased to see me. Natalie, good drive down? He asked, giving me a warm hug. His friendly greeting earned him a sharp look from my sister. The children, blissfully unaware of the adult tension, rushed to greet me with excited hugs and rapid-fire updates about the drive down. Aunt Natalie, why aren't you staying with us? Emma asked, her head tilted in confusion. Before I could answer, Vanessa interjected. Aunt Natalie wants to be by herself this year. She has her own place down the street. The way she emphasized by herself made it sound like I had committed some terrible betrayal. I forced a smile for the children's benefit. I'll still see you guys every day, I assured them. We'll have lots of fun together. But who's going to read us bedtime stories? Tyler asked, his lower lip protruding slightly. Your mom and dad can read to you, I said, glancing at Vanessa. They're great at bedtime stories. Not as good as you, Emma said loyally, making my heart twist despite the circumstances. I helped unload some of the luggage before excusing myself to check into my rental. The small cottage was exactly as advertised, clean, cozy, with a kitchenette and a small porch overlooking a garden area. The silence was both refreshing and slightly unnerving after years of constant noise during these vacations. That evening, we had our traditional first-night dinner at the beach house. My mother had prepared her famous seafood pasta, usually a cause for celebration. Instead, the meal was punctuated by uncomfortable silences and forced small talk. So, Natalie, how's that big project at work going? My father asked in a transparent attempt at normal conversation. It's going well, I replied. We're launching the new campaign next month. Must be nice to be so focused on your career, Vanessa commented with an edge to her voice. Some of us have more important responsibilities. My mother jumped in before I could respond. Richard, how are things at the architectural firm? Still working on that hotel project. The conversation continued in this vein, carefully navigating around the elephant in the room. The children, sensing the tension but not understanding it, were uncharacteristically quiet. After dinner, I offered to help with the dishes, but Vanessa quickly declined. No need, she said coldly. I wouldn't want to impose on your vacation time. I left earlier than I normally would have, citing tiredness from the drive. As I walked back to my cottage in the warm evening air, I felt a mixture of relief at escaping the tension and sadness that my family couldn't understand or respect my decision. The next morning, I arrived at the beach house for breakfast to find Vanessa in a state of frazzled disorganization, trying to apply sunscreen to a squirming Lily while simultaneously making breakfast for the other children. Good morning, I offered, setting down the bag of fresh bagels I'd brought. Vanessa barely looked up. Tyler, please sit down and eat your cereal. Emma, have you packed your beach bag? Can I help with anything? I asked. We're fine, Vanessa snapped. We don't need your help. Richard entered the kitchen, looking tired. Morning, Natalie. Thanks for the bagels. Richard, can you please take over with Lily? Vanessa asked, her voice strained. I need to finish packing the cooler. As Richard took his youngest daughter from Vanessa's arms, I noticed the dark circles under his eyes. It seemed no one had gotten much sleep. The day at the beach established what would become our pattern for the vacation. I would join the family for activities, but was pointedly not asked to help with the children. Vanessa made it clear through her behavior that if I wasn't going to be the dedicated babysitter, I wouldn't be involved at all. This led to some absurd situations, like Vanessa struggling to watch all 3 children in the water while Richard set up the beach umbrella, even though I was sitting right there and could have easily helped. My parents, who might have mediated in the past, seemed determined to stay out of the conflict, though my mother occasionally shot me disappointed looks when Vanessa was visibly struggling. The most difficult moments were with the children, who didn't understand why they couldn't spend time with me as they had in previous years. Lily in particular would often try to crawl into my lap or ask me to take her to the bathroom, only to be intercepted by Vanessa. Mommy will take you, sweetie. Aunt Natalie is busy. By the 3rd day of vacation, the strain was showing on everyone. My parents were walking on eggshells, Vanessa was exhausted and irritable, and Richard looked increasingly confused and frustrated by the situation. The children were picking up on the tension, with more tantrums and tears than usual. That evening, as we all sat on the deck watching the sunset, I overheard a tense exchange between Vanessa and Richard. I thought you said you'd watch the kids tomorrow morning so I could go to that yoga class on the beach, Vanessa said. I did. But then you added the shopping trip in the afternoon, Richard replied. I can't watch them all day, Vanessa. I have that work call at 2. Well, I need a break, Vanessa insisted. Figure it out. In previous years, this would have been the point where I was asked to step in. Now, I pretended not to hear, focusing intently on the book I was reading. Part of me felt guilty for not offering to help, but another part recognized that this was exactly the pattern I was trying to break. Later that night, back in my peaceful cottage, I wondered if I had made the right decision. Was I really standing up for myself, or was I just being petty and causing unnecessary family strife? The guilt and doubt crept in, making me question my choices even as I enjoyed my first truly restful vacation in years. The Destin beaches were at their most beautiful that week, with perfect weather and water, so clear you could see fish swimming around your legs. In any other circumstances, it would have been the ideal vacation setting. Instead, the beauty of our surroundings seemed to highlight the ugliness of the emotional situation we were trapped in. By the 4th day, I had settled into a routine of joining the family mid-morning after enjoying a peaceful breakfast on my cottage porch. I would arrive to find various states of chaos at the beach house, with Vanessa increasingly frazzled as she tried to manage all 3 children without my help. Tyler, please put on your swim shirt, she was saying as I walked in that morning. Emma, have you seen Lily's hat? Richard, are you almost ready? We need to get to the beach before it gets too crowded. Richard was in the kitchen, hurriedly making sandwiches for the beach cooler while simultaneously answering emails on his phone. He looked up briefly when I entered, offering a distracted smile before returning to his tasks. "Good morning," I said, setting down a tray of iced coffees I'd picked up on my walk over. "Oh, thank God, caffeine," Richard said gratefully, reaching for a cup. Vanessa entered the kitchen, Lily on her hip. "We're running late. Did you remember to pack the sunscreen?" Her tone with Richard was short, almost accusatory. She acknowledged my presence with a brief nod before continuing her rapid-fire instructions about beach preparations. At the beach, we set up our usual array of umbrellas, chairs, and toys. The children immediately wanted to go in the water, creating a logistical challenge for Vanessa and Richard. "I can take Emma and Tyler if you want to stay with Lily," I offered, breaking my resolution to let them figure things out themselves. Despite everything, I couldn't stand seeing the children disappointed. Vanessa hesitated, clearly torn between her pride and practicality. "Fine," she finally said, "but stay where I can see you." As I waded into the water with my niece and nephew, I felt a familiar joy in their excitement. Emma wanted to practice her swimming, while Tyler was determined to find as many shells as possible. "Aunt Natalie, watch this," Tyler called, attempting a somersault in the shallow water. "Great job, buddy," I called back, while keeping a careful eye on Emma as she paddled nearby. From the shore, I could see Vanessa watching us intently while bouncing a fussy Lily on her knee. My mother sat beside her, occasionally reaching out to take Lily, only to have Vanessa shake her head in refusal. When we returned to our setup, sandy and happy, Emma said loudly, "That was so fun. I wish she were staying with us like always, Aunt Natalie." An uncomfortable silence fell over the adults. Vanessa busied herself with Lily's hat, avoiding eye contact. "I'm glad you had fun," I said to Emma, choosing to ignore the second part of her statement. "Who wants a sandwich?" The rest of the day continued in this strained manner, with moments of normalcy interrupted by Vanessa's passive-aggressive comments or pointed silences. During lunch, she made a show of struggling to manage all 3 children's meals while I sat nearby, not asked to help. "It's so much harder doing everything myself this year," she said to my mother, just loudly enough for me to hear. My father, who usually stayed out of conflicts, finally spoke up. "Vanessa, that's enough. We're all here to enjoy our vacation." His mild rebuke surprised everyone, including me. Vanessa looked hurt for a moment before composing herself. "I'm just stating facts, Dad." That evening, back at the beach house for dinner, I noticed Richard watching the family dynamics with increasing confusion and concern. He caught my eye several times during the meal, his expression questioning. I wondered how much Vanessa had actually told him about our conflict. After dinner, when the children were occupied with a movie in the living room, I overheard Vanessa telling Richard she was going shopping with my mother the next morning. "But I have that important client call," Richard protested. "We talked about this." "It'll be fine," Vanessa dismissed. "The kids can entertain themselves for an hour while you're on the call." An hour-long conference call with 3 kids running around? "That's not going to work, Vanessa." "Well, figure it out," she snapped. "I need some time for myself. I've been with them constantly this entire vacation." The irony of her statement wasn't lost on me. This was exactly what I had experienced for years, yet when I finally set a boundary, I was labeled a traitor. As I prepared to leave for my cottage, Richard followed me to the door. "Natalie, wait," he said, his voice low. "Is everything okay between you and Vanessa? There seems to be some tension I'm not fully understanding." I hesitated, not wanting to drag him into the middle of our conflict. "We just had a disagreement about vacation arrangements," I said carefully. "I'm sure it will blow over." He nodded, though he didn't look convinced. "Well, if you want to talk about it, I'm here. Sometimes an outside perspective helps." I thanked him and left, feeling oddly comforted by his offer. It was the first time anyone in the family had acknowledged that my feelings might be valid too. That night in my cottage, I reflected on how the vacation was unfolding. While I felt guilty about the strain my decision had caused, I also recognized that I was finally experiencing the vacation I had always wanted. I had read 2 books already, taken early morning walks on the beach, and even joined a beachfront yoga class. For the first time in years, I was returning to my room at night feeling refreshed rather than exhausted. As I drifted off to sleep, I wondered what the second half of our vacation would bring, and whether this new dynamic was the beginning of a permanent change in my relationship with my sister and the rest of my family. The turning point came on the 5th day of our vacation. True to her word, Vanessa left early that morning to go shopping with my mother, despite Richard's protests about his work call. From my cottage porch, I spotted them driving away in my mother's car, leaving Richard alone with all 3 children. I debated whether to go over and offer help. On one hand, I didn't want to undermine my boundary setting by stepping in as soon as Vanessa was gone. On the other hand, Richard hadn't been part of the problem, and it seemed unfair to let him struggle when I was available. Eventually, I decided to at least check in. I walked to the beach house and found Richard on the deck, laptop open, attempting to keep Lily occupied with a coloring book while simultaneously preparing for his call. "Morning," I said. "Everything okay?" The relief on his face was immediate and obvious. "Natalie, thank goodness. I'm about to start a client call and the kids are, well, being kids." "Where are Emma and Tyler?" I asked, noticing their absence. "Building a sandcastle in the front yard. At least they were 5 minutes ago." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I told Vanessa this timing wouldn't work, but she insisted she needed to go shopping. I made a quick decision. "I can watch them during your call if you want." "Are you sure? That would be amazing. It's only supposed to last an hour." "No problem. We'll go down to the beach for a while." Richard looked both grateful and confused. "Thanks, Natalie. I really appreciate it. I'm not sure why Vanessa didn't just ask you in the first place." I gathered the children, packed a small beach bag, and headed to our usual spot on the beach. Emma and Tyler were excited for the unexpected time with me, while Lily was content to play with her bucket and shovel in the sand. "And Natalie, why is Mommy mad at you?" Emma asked as we set up our umbrella. Children's perceptiveness never ceased to amaze me. "What makes you think Mommy is mad at me?" "She gets that line between her eyebrows when she talks to you," Emma explained. "And she doesn't let us sit with you at dinner." "Your mom and I had a disagreement," I said carefully. "But we still love each other, and I still love all of you very much." "Is it because you're not staying with us this year?" Tyler piped up. "Sort of," I admitted. "Sometimes grown-ups need their own space. Like when Daddy goes to his office at home because Mommy is being loud?" Tyler asked innocently. I suppressed a smile. "Something like that." We spent a pleasant hour building an elaborate sand castle, complete with a moat and shell decorations. The children were in good spirits, and I found myself relaxing and enjoying their company now that it was on my own terms. When we returned to the beach house, Richard had just finished his call. "Perfect timing," he said with a smile. "How was the beach?" "Great. We built a mega castle with a dragon guard," Tyler announced proudly. "Sounds impressive." "Thanks again, Natalie. You really saved me there." "No problem," I replied, happy to help. Richard hesitated for a moment. "Would you mind staying for lunch? I could use the adult conversation." I agreed, and we prepared simple sandwiches for everyone. As we sat eating on the deck, watching the children play in the yard, Richard broached the subject I'd been avoiding. "So, what's really going on between you and Vanessa? I've never seen her this tense around you." I took a deep breath, weighing how much to share. "It's about the vacation arrangements and expectations." "You mean you getting your own place instead of staying here?" "Yes, but it's more than that. It's about why I felt I needed my own place." Richard looked genuinely interested, so I continued cautiously. "For the past few years, I've ended up being the default childcare during these vacations. I love the kids, but it reached a point where I wasn't getting any actual vacation time myself." "What do you mean by default childcare?" Richard asked, his brow furrowing. "Well, I'd end up watching the kids most evenings so you and Vanessa could go out." or during the day while everyone else was relaxing or doing activities. And since I shared a room with them, I was also handling nighttime wake-ups. Richard's expression shifted from confusion to concern. I thought you volunteered for that. Vanessa always said you offered to watch them because you enjoyed the time with them. I laughed without humor. I do enjoy spending time with them, but not at the expense of my entire vacation. It was never really presented as a choice. So all those times Vanessa and I went out for dinner or to explore, you were stuck with the kids because we assumed you were okay with it? Pretty much, I confirmed. Remember last year when you two went on that sunset cruise? I stayed back with all 3 kids after spending the entire day at the beach with them while Vanessa got a massage. Richard's face fell. I had no idea. Vanessa told me you insisted we go and that you had specifically requested kid time. That's not exactly how it happened, I said gently, not wanting to throw my sister completely under the bus. She said, Natalie will watch the kids, won't you? And what was I supposed to say with everyone looking at me and the kids all excited about spending time with Aunt Natalie? Richard was quiet for a moment, processing this information. And this has been happening every vacation? Pretty much since Lily was born. Before that, it wasn't as bad because the older 2 were more independent. But with 3 kids, it became a full-time job. Why didn't you say something sooner? I tried, but in subtle ways. No one really took it seriously. My parents would say I should help because that's what family does. And Vanessa would remind me that I don't understand how hard it is to be a parent. That's not fair, Richard said, shaking his head. Just because you don't have children doesn't mean your time isn't valuable. His understanding was unexpected and touching. For the first time that week, I felt like someone was actually hearing me. That's why I got my own place this year, I explained. I needed to set a clear boundary. But Vanessa took it as a personal betrayal. She called me a traitor to the family. Richard's eyebrows shot up. A traitor? That's extreme. That's Vanessa, I said with a small smile. Not one for understatement. So let me get this straight, Richard said, connecting the dots. For years, you've basically been giving up your vacation to provide free childcare. When you finally set a boundary, Vanessa got angry because she was counting on you to watch the kids again this year. That about sums it up, I confirmed. Richard ran a hand over his face. I feel terrible. I had no idea this was happening. I thought you and Vanessa had worked out an arrangement that you were both happy with. That's the problem with assumptions, I said, and with not communicating clearly. Well, that's going to change, Richard said with newfound determination. This isn't right, and I'm going to talk to Vanessa about it when she gets back. I felt a mixture of relief and anxiety at his words. While I was grateful for his understanding, I worried about causing more conflict. You don't have to do that on my account, I started, but Richard cut me off. This isn't just about you, Natalie. It's about honesty in our family, and about Vanessa and me taking responsibility for our own children. We can't keep expecting you to sacrifice your vacation for our convenience. As we cleaned up from lunch, I noticed Richard watching the children with a thoughtful expression. I wondered what conversation awaited Vanessa upon her return, and whether it would make things better or worse. Vanessa and my mother returned from shopping late that afternoon, arms laden with bags. They found Richard and me sitting on the deck with the children, playing a board game. The easy camaraderie between us was immediately apparent, and I saw Vanessa's expression darken. Looks like you're having fun, she said, her tone carefully neutral. We are, Richard replied. Natalie helped out with the kids during my call. We've had a great afternoon. Vanessa's eyes narrowed slightly. That was nice of her. My mother, sensing tension, quickly suggested we start preparing for dinner. As we moved inside, Richard caught Vanessa's arm gently. Can we talk for a minute? He asked quietly. Privately? She looked surprised but nodded.
Sure.
Let me just put these bags away. I busied myself helping my mother with dinner preparations, but my attention was on the closed door of the deck where Richard and Vanessa had gone to talk. Though I couldn't hear their words, the rising and falling cadence of their voices suggested a serious conversation with moments of intensity. After about 20 minutes, they returned inside. Vanessa's eyes were slightly red, and Richard looked solemn but resolved. Neither of them said anything about their discussion, but the atmosphere had shifted palpably. Dinner that evening was a subdued affair. My father, oblivious to the undercurrents, kept the conversation going with stories about his golf game earlier that day. The children, picking up on the adult tension, were unusually well-behaved. As we were clearing the dishes, Vanessa approached me. "Can we talk after the kids are in bed?" she asked, her voice lacking its earlier hostility. "Of course," I replied, surprised and cautiously hopeful. Once the children were tucked in, the adults gathered in the living room. Richard sat beside Vanessa on the couch, his presence seemingly both supportive and expectant. My parents took the armchairs, looking confused about the impromptu family meeting. Vanessa took a deep breath. "I owe Natalie an apology," she began, her voice slightly unsteady. "And I think we all need to have an honest conversation about our family dynamics." My mother looked alarmed. "What's this about?" "It's about how we've been treating Natalie during these family vacations," Richard answered. "And probably beyond that too." "I've been unfair to you," Vanessa said, looking directly at me for the first time in days. "I've been taking advantage of your good nature and willingness to help with the kids. And when you finally set a boundary, I lashed out instead of respecting your decision." The admission was so unexpected that I found myself momentarily speechless. "Richard made me realize how selfish I've been," she continued. "I was so focused on getting a break from the kids that I didn't consider that you deserved a vacation too." "We all contributed to this situation," my father said, surprising me with his insight. "We've had certain expectations of Natalie because she doesn't have children of her own." My mother nodded slowly. "I suppose we have assumed your time was more flexible." "That wasn't fair." "No, it wasn't," I agreed, finding my voice. "I love being an aunt, and I love spending time with Emma, Tyler, and Lily. But there's a difference between enjoying time with them and being responsible for them throughout what's supposed to be my vacation too." "I should have been more aware," Richard added. "I honestly thought you had volunteered for all that childcare. Vanessa led me to believe you preferred staying with the kids over joining the adult activities." Vanessa had the grace to look embarrassed. "I may have misrepresented things somewhat." "You lied," Richard said firmly. "Let's call it what it was." Vanessa nodded, tears forming in her eyes.
"Yes, Elite.
"I told Richard you had offered to watch the kids, when often I had just assumed you would. I told him you weren't interested in the activities we were doing. I took advantage of your kindness, and then got angry when you stopped allowing it." Her candid admission broke something open in me, releasing years of suppressed frustration and hurt. "Do you know how it feels to be treated like the family babysitter rather than an equal adult member of the family? To watch everyone else enjoy their vacation while you're building sandcastles for the 5th hour straight." "I'm truly sorry," Vanessa said, a tear sliding down her cheek. "I've been selfish and entitled. When you booked your own place this year, it forced me to face the reality of actually parenting my own children full-time during vacation. And instead of accepting that responsibility, I got angry at you for not continuing to let me take advantage of you." My mother reached over to take my hand. "We should have noticed and stepped in. I'm sorry we didn't value your time and needs equally." "What can we do to make it right?" my father asked, practical as always. "I think we're already starting," I said. "Having this conversation and acknowledging the pattern is the first step. For the rest of this vacation, Richard and I will take full responsibility for our children," Vanessa declared. "No expectations that you'll watch them so we can go off and do things." "That doesn't mean I don't want to spend time with them," I clarified. "I just want it to be my choice, not an obligation." "Of course," Richard agreed. "And maybe we can work out some fair trades too. Like if you want to watch the kids one evening so Vanessa and I can go out, we'll watch them another time, so you can do something you enjoy." "That sounds reasonable," I said, feeling a weight lifting from my shoulders. "I'd be happy to help out sometimes if it's planned and agreed upon in advance, not just assumed." "And for next year," my mother suggested, "perhaps we should look for a house with an extra bedroom. Or continue the arrangement with Natalie having her own place nearby." I think I'd prefer my own place, I admitted. I've really enjoyed having some quiet time to decompress. Vanessa nodded. That's fair. We've monopolized enough of your vacation time over the years. As the conversation continued, we began to work out practical arrangements for the remainder of the vacation and plans for the future. The atmosphere lightened considerably as we moved from confrontation to problem-solving. By the end of the evening, we had a loose schedule for the remaining days, with clear expectations about childcare responsibilities. Richard and Vanessa would handle most of it, with my parents helping out occasionally and me participating when I chose to. As I prepared to leave for my cottage, Vanessa walked me to the door. I really am sorry, she said quietly. Not just for this vacation, but for years of taking you for granted. Thank you for acknowledging that, I replied. It means a lot. And I'm sorry I called you a traitor. That was childish and cruel. Water under the bridge, I assured her, feeling the first genuine warmth between us in months. She hugged me tightly before I left, something she hadn't done since my arrival. As I walked back to my cottage under the starlit sky, I felt lighter than I had in years. The conflict had been painful, but perhaps necessary for healthier family dynamics moving forward. The final days of our vacation unfolded with a noticeably different energy. Without the underlying tension and resentment, everyone seemed more relaxed and present. Richard and Vanessa took primary responsibility for their children, with occasional help from my parents. I joined family activities by choice rather than obligation, finding a balance that felt right for me. On our 7th day, I arrived at the beach house mid-morning to find Vanessa organizing a beach bag, while Richard made sandwiches for the cooler. Morning, Natalie. Vanessa greeted me warmly. We're heading to the beach in about 20 minutes, if you want to join us. Sounds good, I replied, noticing how she had phrased it as an invitation rather than an expectation. I thought we could set up near that rocky area Emma likes, Richard suggested. The tide pools there are great for the kids to explore. At the beach, we established our spot and settled in for a day of sun and sand. When Lily needed a bathroom break, Vanessa took her without hesitation. When Tyler wanted to play frisbee, Richard was the one who sprang into action. I was free to read my book, swim, or join in the family activities as I pleased. Aunt Natalie, will you help me find shells for my collection? Emma asked after lunch. I'd love to, I replied, genuinely happy to spend one-on-one time with my niece now that it wasn't an all-day, everyday expectation. As we walked along the shoreline, Emma's small hand in mine, I felt a deep appreciation for these moments that I could now fully enjoy without resentment lurking beneath the surface. I like it better when everyone's happy, Emma commented, her 8-year-old wisdom cutting straight to the heart of things. Me too, sweetie, I agreed. Me too. Later that afternoon, Vanessa approached me where I was relaxing under an umbrella. Richard and I were thinking of going for a sunset walk this evening. Would you be willing to watch the kids for about an hour? We'd ask Mom and Dad, but they're having dinner with friends tonight. The familiar request could have triggered old feelings, but the difference in how it was presented made all the difference. It was asked, not assumed, and for a specific, limited time. Sure, I'd be happy to, I said. The kids and I can make those cookies they've been asking about. Thank you, Vanessa said sincerely. And tomorrow morning, if you want some time to yourself for that yoga class you mentioned, Richard and I can handle breakfast and get the kids started for the day. This give-and-take approach continued throughout the remainder of our vacation. I found myself voluntarily spending more time with the children than I had initially planned, simply because the pressure was off. Without the expectation that I would be constantly available, I could genuinely enjoy the time I chose to spend with them. One evening, after the children were in bed, my parents, Vanessa, Richard, and I sat on the deck enjoying wine and conversation under the stars. I've been thinking, my mother said, about how we fell into these patterns without really discussing them. Why didn't we ever talk about the vacation arrangements properly? I think we all avoided potential conflict, my father suggested. It seemed easier to go with the flow than to have difficult conversations. And there were unspoken assumptions, Richard added, about what each of us wanted or was willing to do. Plus, I wasn't clear enough about my boundaries, I admitted. I dropped hints and made occasional comments, but I never directly said, "This isn't working for me," until this year. "And I wasn't listening even when you did try to say something," Vanessa acknowledged. "I was too focused on my own needs." This honest conversation extended beyond vacation dynamics to other aspects of our family relationships. We discussed how certain patterns had established themselves over the years. Vanessa as the somewhat entitled older sister, me as the accommodating younger one, our parents inadvertently reinforcing these roles. For next year's vacation, my father proposed, "Let's start planning early and be explicit about expectations. No assumptions, no unspoken arrangements." "And maybe we could try a different location," I suggested. "Somewhere new for all of us." The idea was met with enthusiasm, and soon we were brainstorming potential destinations and accommodations that would work for everyone's needs. "Whatever we decide," Vanessa said, "Natalie gets her own room. That's non-negotiable." Her firm support of my boundary felt like the final confirmation that things had truly changed between us. The last day of vacation arrived with the bittersweetness that always accompanies the end of time away. As we packed up the beach house, there was none of the tension that had marked our arrival. Instead, there was a comfortable familiarity, punctuated by the children's chatter and the adults' coordinated efforts to clean and organize. "Aunt Natalie, will you visit us soon?" Lily asked as I prepared to leave. "I want to show you my new big girl bed when it comes." "Absolutely," I promised, kneeling to her level. "How about I come for dinner next weekend after you're all settled back home?" Her enthusiastic nod and tight hug around my neck was one of the sweetest moments of the entire vacation. As I said goodbye to everyone, Vanessa hugged me longer than usual. "Thank you," she whispered, "for standing your ground and making us face some uncomfortable truths. Our family is stronger for it." Driving home, I reflected on how differently the vacation had turned out from what I had feared. What began as a crisis had transformed into an opportunity for growth and positive change in our family dynamics. By claiming my own space, both literally and figuratively, I had helped create a healthier pattern for all of us moving forward. Back home in my Atlanta apartment, the effects of our family vacation continued to ripple through our relationships in unexpected ways. The first sign came just 2 days after our return, when Vanessa called me directly, something she rarely did without a specific request or purpose. "I just wanted to check in," she said. "See how you're readjusting to real life." We talked easily for nearly an hour, without the undertones of competition or judgment that had often characterized our adult relationship. It felt like a genuine reconnection, sister to sister, rather than the complicated roles we had fallen into over the years. The following weekend, I kept my promise to visit and see Lily's new bed. When I arrived at their home in the suburbs, all 3 children greeted me with excitement, but without the clinginess that might have resulted from being my constant companions for a week. "The kids have been talking about you nonstop," Richard told me as he helped prepare dinner. "But in a different way than before. It's like they see you as a person now, not just an extension of their parents." "That's a good distinction," I observed. "I think I feel that way too." Over dinner, I noticed subtle changes in how Vanessa interacted with her family. She was more present, more attentive to the children's stories and questions. Richard seemed more engaged as well, the partnership between them more balanced than I had previously observed. "We've been talking a lot since vacation," Vanessa confided when we had a moment alone. "About how we parent, how we share responsibilities. I realized I was doing to Richard some of the same things I was doing to you, just assuming he would pick up the slack without discussion." "How's that going?" I asked. "It's challenging," she admitted. "Breaking old patterns always is. But it feels right. More fair. And honestly, the kids seem happier with both of us more actively involved." In the weeks that followed, I noticed changes in my relationships with my parents as well. My mother called one evening with questions about a work project I had mentioned in passing, showing interest in my career in a way she rarely had before. "I realized I don't ask enough about your life," she said. "I always seem to focus on Vanessa and the grandchildren." "It's natural to give attention to the kids," I assured her. "Yes, but you're my daughter too. Your life and choices are equally important, even if they're different from what I expected or understand. This acknowledgement meant more to me than she could know. For years, I had felt that my career-focused, independent lifestyle was viewed as a placeholder until I followed Vanessa's path of marriage and motherhood. To have my choices recognized as valid in their own right was powerfully affirming. My father, in his typically less verbal way, showed his shift in perspective by sending me articles related to my industry and asking thoughtful questions about my work. Small gestures, but meaningful ones. About a month after the vacation, Vanessa invited me to lunch, just the two of us. Over salads at a quiet cafe, she brought up something that had clearly been on her mind. "I've been thinking about why I reacted so strongly when you set a boundary," she said. "It wasn't just about the childcare, though that was part of it. I think I was jealous." Jealous? Of what? Of your freedom, your career, your ability to make choices just for yourself. She pushed a tomato around her plate thoughtfully. "Don't get me wrong, I love my family. But sometimes I look at your life and wonder about the paths I didn't take." Her vulnerability invited my own. "And sometimes I look at your life and wonder the same thing," I admitted. "The grass is always greener, isn't it?" "The difference is I made my choices," Vanessa said. "But then I resented you for making different ones and tried to force you to share the consequences of my choices without acknowledging what I was doing." This level of self-awareness from my sister was new and refreshing. It opened the door to a more honest relationship between us, one based on mutual respect rather than historical patterns and unspoken expectations. As summer turned to fall, our family began preliminary discussions about the next year's vacation. True to our commitment, these conversations were explicit about arrangements, expectations, and boundaries. We decided on a mountain cabin rental with enough space for everyone to have their own rooms, but still enjoy common areas together. "And we're bringing a baby monitor this time," Richard declared during one planning call. "So we can put the kids to bed and still enjoy adult time without anyone having to stay behind." These practical solutions, combined with our new awareness of family dynamics, promised a very different vacation experience for the following year. The most profound change, however, was in how I viewed myself within our family system. For years, I had accepted the role assigned to me, the accommodating younger sister who could be counted on to fill in the gaps. Setting and maintaining that first boundary, despite the initial conflict it caused, had shifted something fundamental in how I saw myself and how others saw me. I realized that healthy relationships require clear communication and mutual respect. By avoiding difficult conversations in the name of keeping the peace, we had actually created a situation ripe for resentment and conflict. It took courage to disrupt the pattern, but the results had been worth the temporary discomfort. This insight extended beyond my family relationships into other areas of my life. At work, I became more direct about my availability and workload, rather than automatically taking on whatever was asked of me. With friends, I was more honest about my needs and preferences, rather than always deferring to others. The experience taught me that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for authentic connection. When we allow ourselves to be used out of a misplaced sense of obligation, we may be physically present but emotionally absent, building resentment beneath a facade of accommodation. My sister called me a traitor for refusing to babysit, but in reality, I had been betraying myself for years by not honoring my own needs and limits. By finally standing up for myself, I created the opportunity for more genuine relationships based on choice rather than obligation. As I look toward future family gatherings with a new perspective, I'm grateful for the difficult but transformative journey we've taken together. The path to healthier relationships isn't always smooth, but it leads to a place where love can flourish without the weeds of resentment choking its growth. What boundaries have you struggled to set with family members? Have you ever been called selfish for prioritizing your own needs? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more content about navigating complex family dynamics. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others and yourself is to say no when you need to.